Confidence is how you feel about yourself on the inside. If you think about what you want more of, what you want to do well, you're a lot more likely to repeat that.
There's such a narrative of build up your weaknesses, find your weaknesses and build them up versus maybe double down on your strength. You can't just shout the affirmation.
Right.
Now you have to go into actually action steps.
There's a lot of value in cultivating a, as you put it, sort of general umbrella of okay-ness about oneself. The human animal is built to be nervous.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Strength Connection podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kurkowski. I'm so grateful that you can join me today. Dr. Nate Zinsser is a renowned performance psychologist who's taught 3 generations of soldiers, athletes, and executives to master the art of confidence and mental toughness. He was the director of the performance psychology program at West Point since 1992, where he helped prepare cadets for leadership in the United States Army. Along with that, he's personally mentored professional athletes in the NFL, NHL, and Olympic champions, and he's the author of The Confident Mind, one of the best books I've personally read on mindset. So it's an honor to host Dr. Zinsser on the show today. The array of topics we dove into was incredible. I know you'll get a ton out of this conversation. So with that, we'll get right to it. If you like this episode, you want to show the podcast some love, please rate and review it wherever you're listening. And don't forget to subscribe. You can catch all new episodes that are dropped every single week. All right, with that, we'll get to it. Thank you very much. Now let's get on with the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the podcast. And Dr. Nate Zinsser, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm really excited to chat with you, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is a great opportunity, Mike. I'm delighted to be with you today.
Yeah, and you're coming from West Point area, right?
Yes, I live right across the river from West Point on the east side of the Hudson River. Been here for over 30 years since I first started at West Point back in the summer of 1992.
Okay, and you're still working there, right?
I'm technically retired from a full-time position there, but I still work with a couple of the teams, and I still reach out to many of the cadets, and many of the cadets are still reaching out to me.
For sure, I'm sure.
So I'm still deeply connected to the institution, emotionally, but not technically or organizationally.
No doubt. Well, 30 years in a space, those relationships don't go away, quickly from there. I'm sure it's still very deeply connected. I have to say, I've been to West Point a few times from like tournaments growing up playing baseball and softball. It is the most gorgeous campus I've ever been on in my life.
Well, you must have been there, Mike, during months of like April and May.
Yes.
when the grass is green, the trees are flowering. Right now, we're recording this podcast first week in February.
Mm-hmm.
It's rather cold.
Yes.
The skies tend to be gray. The buildings at West Point are all built with this gray castle-like granite.
Mm-hmm.
And the cadets wear a gray as for class uniform
several
days a week. So between the gray sky, the gray buildings, the gray dress, the cold temperatures, cadets endure this time of year what is known as the gloom period, and they got to tough it out through their very demanding class schedule, their very demanding training schedule. And, for the intercollegiate athletes at West Point, our winter sports are still in full swing, and our spring sports are starting up. So it's a demanding time that requires, some real diligence and real focus on the part of these great young men and women.
Yeah, no doubt. Yes, as you're speaking, I remember it was always in like the summertime because we were doing summer tournaments and the landscape is everything beautiful. Yeah, I'm from Saratoga Springs area, so I understand the gray of there. I'm not too far over there. So, well, I mean, with people who might not know you, with West Point and your work, what did you do over there at West Point?
I was the director of a rather unique performance psychology program that was seated under the dean's command structure. So even though I did sports psychology advising to a lot of West Point intercollegiate athletes, I was technically working for the dean of the academic board, and that enabled me to provide training and get resources to provide training for all 4,000 cadets. West Point is a leadership institution The young men and women who graduate every year are required to serve as second lieutenants in the Army for a minimum of 5 years. And so while West Point historically has done a great job teaching the mechanics of leadership, the mechanics of soldiering, the physical, technical, and tactical training, back 30 plus years ago, a visionary colonel working in our psychology department said maybe we ought to be really working on some of these intangibles of human performance. What I have come to euphemistically refer to as the psychology of kicking ass.
Okay.
Pardon my language, because again, this is the United States Army. We are in the ass-kicking business.
Yes, very much so.
So the same skills that professional athletes, Olympic athletes use in order to ensure that they are confident, focused, composed during their moments of intense performance. Most of these skills are immediately transferable to the military leadership context. So it was this visionary colonel's idea that we could produce a program and we could institutionalize it throughout West Point so that everybody graduating really understood a little bit about the psychology of confidence, the psychology of focusing amidst distraction, the whole psychology of retaining your energy and recovering your energy despite having to put out a lot of energy in a demanding military environment, in a demanding academic environment, in a demanding athletic context. So I was charged with the leadership of this program for 30 years. And I think we did a heck of a good job.
No doubt. Absolutely. And it's interesting because the term, confidence, I think is so interesting. And I have your book right here, The Confident Mind, which I've been diving into. As I said, I have a few pages left, but really enjoyed the book. I've always loved learning in general, but the way that you describe some examples from military that you worked with, but as well as professional athletes and just normal people that are going in and trying to expand their businesses and trying to expand their careers or their families. Like confidence is something that it seems like we all aspire to have more of at a time. So it's a really interesting topic I want to dive into with you here. So I have to share a story with you because I know you worked with Eli Manning for a bit, and he wrote a great piece in the beginning of your book here. But it's so funny. I remember being a Giants fan. It's where Giants and Patriots, which is where I'm from, area around Saratoga Springs. There's some Jets fans and Bills fans around. But I remember back in like 2011, and there was a interview with Eli Manning, and they asked him, like, do you believe that you're an elite quarterback? And he said, like, yes, I believe I am. And they said, well, would you put yourself in the same category as Tom Brady? And he's like, yeah, I think I belong with those guys. And the media would have thought that he just said that he worshiped the devil. And it spawned so many different conversations and debates with me and my Patriots friends of Eli Manning versus Tom Brady. And then I realized you're a big part of the reason why we had all those debates is your work with Eli Manning. So I remember that so vividly, and it was so cool to hear that at the beginning of the book.
And when those debates erupted in the blogosphere as they did in August of 2011, I just sat back and smiled because, look, if you are Eli Manning and you are on a field with 80,000 people every Sunday afternoon and millions more watching on TV, you have to believe that you're as good as anybody else out there, or you invite doubt, resultant muscle tension, and the resultant mediocrity into your game. Every quarterback has to believe that if he is indeed serious about playing as well as he can play. And indeed, everybody on the field needs to feel that way if they're going to play as well as they can play. And it's not just quarterbacks. It's not just NFL folks. It's, as you pointed out, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a doctor, if you're a stay-at-home mom, for Pete's sake, you better have the conviction that I'm good at this. I may not be perfect at it. I can always learn more, but I'm really good at this. And when you have that certainty, you perform more or less naturally and unconsciously. And that allows everything that you actually have the talent and the training and the ability to do to find expression day by
Right.
day, hour by hour. So it was wonderful to
Oh,
see
yeah.
Eli Manning just sort of reply matter of factly, yeah, I believe I am. He wasn't pounding his chest. He wasn't, trying to make a publicity point. He was just being an honest, competitive, confident guy in the moment.
Right.
And he had learned how important that was, and he had been practicing that for a long time.
hmm
And I think his body of work speaks for itself.
Yeah. It's so interesting you said it, because I think that speaks to the authenticity of what confidence is, right? I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what that is, because you see, some braggadocious type people like, old like Muhammad Ali, growing up, and he was very outspoken with his confidence. But you say somebody like Eli Manning or Drew Brees that you use in the book as well, like very more stoic in there. Like that's just the same amount of confidence in there. You don't have to be one person versus the other. You just need to be you.
You
And
need
really,
you need to be you, and you really raise an important point about the misconception that confidence equals, outspoken bragging and calling attention to oneself.
mm,
No, that's just boasting. Confidence is how you feel about yourself on the inside, and you can
mhm,
be a very quiet, respectful, polite person on the outside, but on the inside believe, as Eli Manning expressed, that you're as good as anybody in the field.
yeah.
Muhammad Ali certainly took a lot of heat for
mhm,
being outspoken. He was an outspoken, extroverted personality. We've seen other people in the world of sports, especially uh, coming from that same perspective. Um, Joe Namath,
mm,
the Hall of Famer from the Jets. More recently, Deion Sanders, Conor
mhm,
McGregor, Ronda Rousey, Richard Sherman. These are outspoken people who had the inner confidence, but who expressed it very directly and very personally out in interviews to the world.
mhm.
And and a lot of people are uncomfortable hearing somebody
Right.
speak that powerfully and boastfully about themselves. Um,
mhm.
Sometimes that outward boastfulness can be a cover up for a lack of
Yes.
the true internal confidence. That does happen.
Mhm.
But, I think in the case of, Ali, Namath, McGregor, Rousey, Sanders, they were truly confident individuals
Mm,
who just happened to be outspoken, who
yeah.
happened to be very, very, very extroverted, and they didn't mind sharing how they felt about themselves with the world. Other people like the Manning brothers, Serena Williams, Venus Williams, and Drew Brees,
Mhm.
they're just naturally more introverted, naturally more quiet.
Mhm.
It's not their nature to call attention to themselves. But the
Right.
common denominator, and what everyone really has to understand, is it's how you think about yourself. It's how you think about your degrees of competence. It's how you think about yourself, the work or the game that you're in, and all the things that happen in that game. That is what matters. That's what makes
Right.
confidence. Whether you choose to share it with the world, that's another question altogether.
Yeah, that seems like it's more of your different personalities. But as you said, like the common denominator is what they felt within themselves in their own mind, because that's what came out in their actions, right? It's like,
Yes, exactly.
Conor McGregor is, a great example of it, because he's very outspoken with it, but he backed it up over and over. So you could think of him as maybe cocky or arrogant, and sometimes that can feel that way. And it seems like too in our culture, like that's almost seems like everybody wants to subdue that, like don't be outspoken about these
Hmm.
things. But once you back it up and you like actually like kind of put your money where your mouth is, where the best example of it, then it's like, okay, there's something different going on here. But there was another piece of that with Eli Manning that I love that you described in the book of after they won the Super Bowl in 2012 and they asked him because he threw that great pass to Manningham on the side. It was like a 40-yard bomb that started the game-winning drive. And I forget who asked him, but said, like, do you think about your like a mistake, like making a mistake at that
Yeah.
time? And he's like, no, it's like you put that out of your mind. Like you think of all the times that you did game-winning drives. And what I remember from being such a big Giants fan is everybody remembers Eli from that year when he won the Super Bowl, but he had more game-winning drives in the regular season that year as well than I think any other time in his career of coming back and winning regular games. So, and he said, you can kind of misremember those mistakes. And that's one of those misconceptions. People think, oh, the team that makes the least amount of mistakes is the one that wins. It's like, that's actually a poor mindset when we're talking about confidence, right?
That is a very poor mindset. For that ESPN radio interviewer to say, well, do you think about failure at a moment like that? At a moment like that in a, key performance situation, do you think about failure? Do you think about the ramifications of failure? That's the exact question. Do you consider the ramifications of failure at a time like that? And Eli very politely said, heck no. That's the wrong thing to do at a moment like that. At a moment like that, you want to be thinking about all the times you have done something similar successfully. You want to recall, in the case of Eli Manning, all your game-winning fourth quarter drives. That's what you want to be remembering and filling yourself with as you step up into that situation, as you step onto that stage, as you step into that spotlight. Boy, you completely shove out of your mind any memory of having failed. And let's face it, Eli Manning and the New York Giants did fail with some fourth quarter come from behind drives several times over the course of that season, but they had also succeeded in come from behind fourth quarter drives that season. And it's a question of which of those things they chose to basically live in their mind. And Eli said, you misremember the failures, you remember the successes, and that's the feeling. That's the feeling when you, depending on your default memory and your default self-talk, you're going to create a certain emotional state, a certain feeling. You're going to create fear, doubt, worry on one hand, or trust, belief, confidence on the other hand. And Eli and so many other great performers in any walk of life understand that if I think a certain way, I'm going to feel a certain way.
Right.
And if I feel a certain way, I'm much more likely to execute and perform well. So I'm going to be in control of my thoughts. That's my responsibility.
Yeah. In your career of working with, athletes, high performers, and cadets, is that more, do people normally come in when you first connect with them and they're thinking the opposite way? We're focusing more on the negative side versus the positive, and this needs to be a learned state. It seems like the negative things almost like come up in our mind in bold letters more, like as a threat versus the positive. Like it's very easy to, you can read 1,000 positive comments about you, but then you get that one negative or two negative in there and you'll stew about that a lot. Does it seem like this is almost going against the grain of normally what our mind wants to do?
In a lot of cases, Michael, absolutely. All right. I think biologically, we as human beings all have a little bit of a negativity bias because our lives as primitive, pre-technological, pre-agricultural hunter-gatherers was very uncertain.
Yes.
We weren't all that certain about finding clean water, finding food supplies, getting through the winter, whether our children whether our wives would actually survive childbirth, in pre-technological, pre-agricultural, primitive situations. So there's a little bit of, looking over our shoulder that's kind of built into our biology. I will hasten to add that there is also an optimism bias built into our biology as well. because we survived as a species over hundreds of thousands of years
Right.
because we could look forward to the future. We could think, yeah, we will find the herd of deer, or we will find the grove of trees that will provide us with shelter. You know, I think we can do this. And so both of those instincts, if you will, both of those impulses are built into us as human animals. Unfortunately, what's very true in our modern world is that the negativity bias kinds of gets differentially supported as we are young kids growing up. Just about everybody can remember, a grade school teacher shaking his or her finger at you and saying, you did this wrong. You have to remember
Right.
that you did this wrong. And come on, straighten up and fly right.
Yeah.
Our imperfections, our mistakes tend to be thrown at us quite a lot. So I think that there is a social influence that makes that negativity bias rather strong. And, as you put it, most of the people that I work with, their default setting, if you will, is to differentially focus on their mistakes, their setbacks, their imperfections, and to kind of emotionally discount their successes and their progress. Because
Right.
they've been told that if I don't think about what I'm doing wrong, I'm never going to get better.
Right.
And that has only limited truth. If you think about what you want more of, what you want to do well, you're a lot more likely to repeat that. And seeing as how that's what you want, it makes a great deal of logical sense when you break it down this way. And educational psychology bears this out. If we teach kids to think about good possible outcomes, if we teach kids to think about bad outcomes as only temporary, as only limited, as opposed to occurring all the time, if we teach kids, to have what Carol Dweck at Stanford University refers to as a growth mindset, in that, I am capable of learning a lot. I may have goofed up now, but that's not a definitive statement about my learning ability. The literature is quite clear that if we teach that, kids learn better.
Right.
Kids do not learn better when all you do is emotionally emphasize mistakes, failures, setbacks, inadequacies, imperfections. Yet, a lot of us walk around.
Yeah.
Our default setting is, okay, I'm not good enough at this. I got to get better at that. As opposed to, hey, I did it right that one time. That means I can do it again. Good for me. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's such a narrative of build up your weaknesses, find your weaknesses and build them up versus maybe double down on your strengths. Like, what are you really good at? And that will kind of rise everything up from there. And as you mentioned that, like, we're talking about confidence, like it goes so different into thinking it's just one singular thing. Like, you can be confident in one thing and very not confident in another thing. But what you're talking about is having a mindset of confidence is something different. That's kind of like an umbrella around almost everything that you do. So it really goes even deeper into a foundational setting.
Yeah, very much so. Specific confidence, skill by skill or sport by sport, is indeed rather situation specific. There are people who have great confidence in their serve and volley game, but they're petrified about trying to hit a cross-court backhand. That's the bad news. The good news is that just as you learned to be confident in your serve and volley game, you can learn to be confident in your cross-court backhand. It's going to take some effort and some awareness on your part, but you can cultivate that. And I think there is there's a lot of value in cultivating as you put it, sort of general umbrella of okayness about oneself. Yeah, I can learn. I can grow. What are my opportunities today? Let's take advantage of those.
Yeah. So building that up, like, that's one thing that you talked about a lot in your book, of building up your kind of mental bank account and looking at these things in the past, the present, and the future. I'd love you to break this down a bit because I think it's so fascinating. So when you go into this, and if somebody's talking to you, say, oh, I'm not confident in this, is it important, like, do you look at the past first and then go to the present, future? Like, should you go in that order, or does it not matter as much?
Um, I'm not sure it matters which order you go in, whether you're really investigating your thought processes about your past versus your present state versus your desired futures. But I do think eventually you got to cover them all.
Yeah.
Usually when people come to me, they can recount, well, I messed up this. They're talking about something in the past, and because I messed up something in the past, now I'm not feeling very certain or very confident in myself. So we have to tweak, adjust their habitual thought process about their past performance, their past experience, so that they can benefit from, well, the times that they did it right,
Right.
And that helps them step away from the sort of habitual understanding that, oh, I'm not good at something now because I goofed it up then. Okay. All right. So let's maybe look at the progress you've made over your years. Let's look at some of your highlights. I mean, if we could create an ESPN highlight reel of your entire career up to this point, would there be some highlights? And everybody says, yeah, if you dig deep enough, you find them. And then on the basis of that, you can actually say to yourself, okay, I am, 80% on target, at the free throw line, I average this many points per game. And then we can say, well, would you like more?
Yeah.
Can you imagine being a 95% foul shot shooter? Can you imagine being a 30-point a game player as opposed to an 18-point player? What is it that you really want?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to be a 30-point per game player. I'd love to sell, $20 million of my products per year. Okay. Well, maybe if you changed your thinking about that, and from I want to be, or I'd like to be, or I wish I was, to I'm a $20 million a year salesman. It kind of shifts the tension level inside. It creates, some energy, some excitement. I am.
Yeah.
Okay. No, okay. So what do $20 million a year salesmen do?
Right.
It's different from a $50 million a year salesman. Okay.
Yep.
If you think of yourself in that $20 million category, and again, this sort of goes back to Eli Manning. I am in Tom Brady's category as a quarterback.
Yes.
That means I really prepare well, week by week. I really take care of my body, day by day, hour by hour. And when it's game time, I am really locked in, present, as opposed to worrying about what the scoreboard says, worrying about the fact that, oh, my starting wide receiver is now out, and I got to bring in a guy who I had limited reps with over the course of the week because nobody expected him to play very much. He got a few reps, but he didn't get as many as a starter.
Right.
But when Eli thinks of himself as, I am in that class. When the $15 million a year salesman says, I'm a $20 million guy or gal.
Yeah.
She opens herself up to more possibilities.
Right.
How do I behave? How do I organize my time? How do I respond to setbacks? And the customers who say, no, not this year, come back in 6 months, Oh, but I'm a $20 million. How do I respond in those moments?
Right.
So
I love
it kind of changes you.
Yeah, I love the second part you said there after kind of the affirmation, because it's like affirmations. I've looked at it on both sides. I've said some people who say, oh, just focus on the work. And then others like absolutely dive into affirmations. And where I always had a struggle with it was like, if you say, oh, I'm the best, or, oh, I am indestructible. It's like, well, there's no identity there at all. Like it's so vague versus I'm a $20 million, business product or so. Like that's a personal thing. But then the second piece you said there, Dr. Zinsser, was, okay, now what do I need to do? How does that person act? And I think that's where a lot of people miss. Like you can't just shout the affirmation.
Right.
Now you
Yeah,
have to go into actually action steps.
exactly. That, the affirmation, just to keep using this example, I sell $20 million of medical devices each year. Well, that's a fine affirmation, but how about I respond to each customer's question with clarity and enthusiasm? How about I follow up with each customer call within 24 hours? How about affirming the actions that contribute toward that desired outcome? In the book, I offer people the idea of, think about a skill that you want to have, you know, a great cross-court backhand, or a great touch with my pitching wedges on the golf course. Affirm a skill that you want to have. Affirm a quality that you want to have. I handle each of my child's outbursts with calmness and firmness. That's a quality, And then, okay, what's the outcome you want?
Right.
Yeah, I want to sell 20 million bucks. So, affirm the skill, affirm the quality, affirm the outcome, so that you're not just looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I'm a wonderful person.
Right.
Okay. If that floats your boat, go ahead. But I think you can be a lot more specific and constructive in affirming
Sure.
yourself.
Yeah. This was something I had some struggle with about a year and a half ago. I started my own business in August of 2021. After moving
It's a hell of a time to try to start a business.
It was a beautiful time. Yeah. A business I knew well, and I kind of, I had a great friend, we were partners, and then we dissolved that and came from another spot. But I had a lot of those moments in my head of like, oh my God, I've never been, the solo guy before. Like, can I do this? And all of a sudden I had these thoughts, well, you've been doing this business before. You've managed a team, like you've built a business, like you've done the training, and I didn't realize like all those past experiences that I had that were good successes. Yeah, those are all still true. Now you could just start applying them into what you're doing right now. But if you've never done something before that you're trying to aspire to, your mind can play tricks on you, it seems. If like you can be a great quarterback, but if you never won the Super Bowl and say, I'm a Super Bowl champion, you might not immediately identify with it right away. So is that one of the struggles that you see with people? Like if they're trying to do something that maybe they haven't done before, trying to almost to say that you can't identify with it so easily?
Sometimes it is a bridge too far emotionally. They can't get behind the statement, I'm an All-American swimmer, or I'm an All-American hurdler. They can't get behind that. But they can get behind, I am the top performer on my team. They can get behind, I am the, league champion. They can get behind something a little bit smaller that still has some magnetic pull, that still gets them to stretch a little bit.
Right. And you probably still do the qualities, right? I remember Kobe Bryant had a great saying about that when he was looking at guys like Jordan and Magic and saying, these are the best of the best in the world. And he said, can I get to that level? And he's like, well, I don't know, but let's find out.
Yeah,
like you can do the qualities of it, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. What are the qualities that made Jordan and Magic so special? And I never had the chance to meet Kobe, unfortunately. I would have loved to. Wouldn't surprise me at all if a whole lot of his thinking was, I play my best in the biggest games of the year. I am the guy that my team counts on for clutch points late in the game. These kinds of more specific affirmations that are based on Koby's understanding of what made Michael and Magic so special. So he's affirming that part of himself, which is part and parcel of being great at that Hall of Fame level. So
Right.
that's a
Yeah.
very constructive way to think.
Yeah. It's interesting. You put something in the book that I love the way that you phrased it. You said falling in love with your butterflies. And
Okay.
I love this so much. And it reminded me of guys like Koby. Like there was a story of Koby that he used to listen to like the Halloween theme from like the Michael Myers movie before like doing warm-ups, because he was getting into a mindset of putting the Mamba mask on and getting ready to dominate and demolish the other team. And Mike Tyson would say the same thing. They asked, like, are you nervous before fights? And I think he said, I'm nervous before every single one. But then as he gets closer and closer to the ring, he thinks of himself as a god. And you kind of, I think you used Michael Johnson as a great example of saying, like, when they asked, like, when he was nervous when he won the 200 and 400 the first time, he said, yeah, when I'm nervous, that's when I'm comfortable. And it's so different than what we're taught a lot of, like, I'm really nervous in these big times or these big events with stuff. And how you described it's like, yeah, you should be.
Says, oh, you've got nothing to be nervous about. Just calm down.
Yeah.
That's not really good advice.
Yeah.
My apologies to all the moms and dads and teachers and coaches who may have said that to a kid or an athlete. Oh, don't be nervous. You've got nothing to be nervous about. Just calm down. The human animal is built to be nervous. We are biologically designed to experience a energy surge prior to doing something that matters. Whether it's something that matters because it's something we really, really want to do, like throw the winning touchdown pass in a game, or even walk across the room to introduce yourself to that very attractive person at the party that you don't know. You want to do that, and because you're doing something that you want to do, something that matters to you, your body produces a whole biochemical shift, which raises your heart rate, which opens up your eyes, and which also stimulates the hundreds of millions of nerve endings in your stomach. And so your stomach flips a little bit up and down, and you have that butterfly-y sensation. Now, all of that is designed to make you better in the moment that is important to you. And this is going to occur when you're going to do something that's important, whether you want to do it, like throw the touchdown pass or meet that very special looking someone across the room. It's also going to happen when you're about to do something that you have to do, even if you're not excited about it.
Right.
Like taking the chemistry final exam.
Exactly.
The chemistry final exam for a lot of people has consequences. They care about their GPA. They care about their grad school admission process. They want to do well. So there's going to be the same nervousness. Okay, think about what the term nervous means. One definition is apprehensive and worried, which is what most people think. Another definition, right there in the dictionary of nervous, is pertaining to the nervous system.
Yes.
Your brain, your spinal cord, all those nerves that protrude from your spinal cord and go everywhere in your body. When you're nervous, your nervous system is more active, excited. And that is how evolution made us. That's how we are designed to be. We would not have survived as a species if we could not have mobilized energy when it's time to chase the deer.
Right.
Or time to climb the mountain where the particular healing plant happens to be located. We needed this ability to mobilize a lot of energy when it's time to do something important, and it's built into us.
Right.
But unfortunately, most of us misunderstand it.
Yeah.
But the guys like Olympic sprinter Michael Johnson, who I mentioned in the book, he's come to the conclusion that being nervous is helpful.
Yes.
So he looks forward to it. He says, when I'm nervous, I'm comfortable. I know my body is getting into a good
Yeah.
place. And if you read the biographies and autobiographies of great performers across just about any endeavor of human performance, you're going to find a moment where that person, said, yeah, I finally realized that when I did have this excited, nervous feeling, boy, it really helped me,
Right.
even if it has some side effects, like, okay, you got to go over to the bathroom and get rid of lunch,
Right.
because that's just your body getting rid of stuff that you don't need.
Right.
And a lot of athletes say, yeah, I know I'm ready to play once I go to the bathroom and get rid of lunch.
Exactly.
Now I'm ready. And some people have even said, I stopped feeling that excitement. I stopped feeling that energy surge. And that's when I knew it was time to retire.
Yeah.
That's when I knew I wasn't
That's
going to be
interesting.
able to
Yeah.
be as good as I needed to be in, playing professional football or
Right.
whatever it
Right.
is.
Yeah.
I didn't
You're so
feel
in
that.
tune with your body. You're so in tune with your body
Yeah,
that when it's not a mind shift as much as the physical shift that they feel.
right. Yeah.
That's
So
so interesting.
just falling in love with your butterflies, understanding why they occur, and just accepting them. Okay, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
nervous, and this is good. This means I'm
Yeah.
going to play well. All
Well, I
right, give
love
me the
that.
ball.
And I love that. It was early in your book that you said that, and it just hit so much because I heard this a while ago. I don't know if this is even true, but they said it's the difference between being nervous and being excited. Like the same stuff happens in your body. It's the same endorphins, the same exact chemical release is going on inside your body, whether you're nervous about something or whether you're excited. Just the difference is how you perceive it in your mind.
Yes, the difference is the narrative that you give to those physical sensations.
Mm,
Oh, I'm so nervous and this is awful, or oh, I'm so excited, this is great. The
right.
underlying biology, as you point out, is very similar, pretty darn identical.
Yeah.
But so much it's your personal interpretation of that biology that's
Mm,
going to determine whether it is tensing you up and making you feel very uncomfortable, or tensing you
yeah.
up but getting you excited and you love it. It's
Right.
your
Yeah.
personal interpretation.
That's got to be so big, specifically with the men and women you worked with at West Point, because I mean they're going into combat. Like, I mean, it's you can't think of a more nerve-wracking situation where your nervous system is standing on end. That if I'm sure, like this is one of the biggest things to connect with. Of yeah, this is actually the time when I'm at my best, not when I'm not.
Hmm.
This is actually a good thing that's happening.
Yeah. And the idea that, once you've played your sport for a while, or once you have been in a couple of firefights, your nervousness is going to fade away
Yeah.
before the next one. Um, no, it doesn't matter how experienced you are.
Mm,
You're gonna feel some butterflies
yeah.
before every operation. Every
Mm,
time you step outside the wire on a mission, you're going to feel that nervousness. It's
yeah.
just part of you.
It's just
You
part of
know,
it.
it's
It's funny that I work with a company called Strong First with their kettlebell program for physical training, and one of the requirements since I did this in 2010 is you do a 5-minute snatch test. For men, it's a 53-pound bell. You have to do 100 reps in 5 minutes, and I mean it's workable. And as you do it more and more, it's very manageable. But no matter what, it's still a demanding test. Like it's 5 minutes. You're hamstrings, your glutes are on fire, your heart rate's jacked up, like your forearms going, and that. And every couple of years, I would be on the clock to recertify, or if I'm assisting a workshop, and you have to do this test again. It's just kind of like your rite of passage to, recommit yourself to being an instructor. And for years, like every time I would step up and it was this time, I'd be like nervous. It's like, and in my head, I'm like, why? Like you've done this a million times before. Like, why are you nervous? And then I realized it's like, oh, you should be nervous. Like this is important to you. Like that's actually good. Like, and I would like try and take the deep breaths to like calm yourself down. And that never worked at all. Like and as soon as I picked up the bell and like I started, it was like, Oh, okay. I've done this before. Like it's all
Yeah.
of a sudden all those nerves go away and you're just in the process of it. But you can, I psych myself out so much before each of these tests thinking something was wrong. Like, why are you nervous? You've been doing this before. It's like, well, if you ask, Brady for the 10 Super Bowls that he was in, I'm sure he was nervous in every single one, regardless of how many times you get there.
Right. I quote Patriots head coach Bill Belichick, you know, who says, I'm nervous every Sunday, you know. How many games has he coached? You know, but
Yeah.
he's nervous every Sunday because he wants to do well. His performance on the sideline matters.
Mhm.
And so his body goes through this biological shift to
Mhm.
bring up his energy level, to open up his eyes, to activate his heart and muscles,
Mhm.
even though he's not sprinting down the field carrying the football,
Right.
he's very alert and turned on to
Mhm.
do his job. And it's the same for all of us.
Yeah, no, it's huge. So I want to go back. I want to ask you again about the bank account, because doing the work of the past and kind of filtering through that is huge. But then what are, like, in the present, some daily things that people can do? Like, they've built up the confidence, now they're working towards it. Are there specific things you can do each day that you recommend to work with, either like beginning of the day or end of the day? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, certainly toward the end of the day, there's the opportunity to reflect on what has transpired in the previous 8, 10, 12, 16 hours, you know? And if you're going to keep building that mental bank account, you want to take advantage of whatever might have transpired in that
Mhm.
8, 10, 12, 16 hours, and make note of that in a way, taking things from the day and using them as deposits into that mental
Mhm.
bank account. Okay, where today did I put in quality effort? Where today did I address my procrastination and do something, that I didn't really want to do, but I had to get done, and so I tightened up my belt
Right.
and did it, slugging through the email inbox, you know, calling that client or that customer or that person in your supply chain to get something done. You don't want to have that conversation again,
Mhm.
but you have to,
Yeah.
and you did it. And so just acknowledging those episodes of effort throughout the day. There could be one, there could be two, could be three. Acknowledging those. Scribble them down on a piece of paper. Quality effort today. Did this, did this, did this. Okay, great. That's a 2-minute exercise
Mhm.
at best. All right. And then you look back on the same day and, okay, what did I succeed at? What did I get right? Even little things.
Mhm.
Yeah. I actually answered that question from so and so. I um, I hit a PR doing my kettlebell snatches.
Yep.
I I really had a good conversation finally with so and so about such and such.
Yep. Mhm.
Okay, that's a little success. I mean, yeah, no, you didn't win the Nobel Prize. You didn't win the Olympic gold medal. It's not something that, is going to make front page news,
Mhm.
but it's a tiny little success, you
Right.
know? And if you're not looking back at your day for those little tiny successes, what are you looking back and
Yeah.
reflecting on? Yeah, there's a little catch there. So we look for episodes of effort, we look for episodes of success, and then we can sort of look at um, indicators of progress.
Mhm.
What am I getting better at? Oh, I'm getting better at handling this kind of question. I'm getting better at streamlining my workflow. I'm getting better at using this particular software package to, uh, you know, help design uh, new buildings and new
Yeah. Mhm.
technologies. Okay, I'm making progress at something. So that very short daily reflection, ESP, effort, success, progress.
Mm.
That's a really worthwhile practice. It doesn't
Yes.
take a lot of time, but it bears a lot of fruit.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I've been a practitioner of daily wins for a while. My coach and good friend Brian Grasso with his program has preached that before. And we
Hmm.
kind of said the same thing. Like, you don't realize we're always looking for we're looking for the Super Bowl day. It's like when
Yeah.
you win the big thing, when if you break it down, how many days you showed up to practice on time, you ran that drill again that you did, and you think that it's all like the micro, like the small things, but how many actual good things do happen throughout the
Mhm.
day if you take a couple of minutes and just break it down from there. It's amazing that once I started doing that, what I realized too, Dr. Zinsser, was I started to see the wins as they came throughout the day more. Like you'd
Yeah.
see it, you'd be like, oh wow, like all of a sudden you start to, that's a win. Oh, this is a victory. Oh, finally got a chance to talk to Dr. Zinsser. I've been waiting for this for a while. This is a great win from here. But what happened afterwards, what you did, it's amazing how quickly you can shift your mindset into seeing those things more clearly. It's kind of like you get a new car, right? And then all of a sudden you see that car everywhere that you
Yeah.
go. It seems like it's the same kind of lineage.
Yeah. You make a very valuable point. If um, I touch on this in the book, the idea is if you have taken a careful, honest look at your highlights from your long-term past, and you take the perspective of looking for, the day's highlights in the short
Mhm.
term, you know, you can also extend that to looking for highlights with a very small h,
Mhm.
hour by hour by hour throughout the day. So you kind of, it's a way you sort of shift the lens through which you see yourself and your work. Okay. Yeah, I walk away from a conference, or I walk away from a drill. What was the best rep I had in that drill? Oh, it
Yeah.
was this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I think that's what you want more of.
Mm.
So that's something worth carrying with you, as opposed to, boy, I just finished that drill and I I really blew it on the fourth rep, and
Mm.
coach chewed me out on the fourth rep. Well, do you really want to carry that memory with you? Why not carry the memory of the best rep you did in that same drill? Ah,
Right.
that's going to encourage you to do what you did better or well or right the next time you're called upon to perform that skill, as opposed to recalling the one that you goofed up on where a coach chewed you out. Oh. And it's amazing
Right.
how many ball players, and we're all ball players to a certain extent
Yes.
in
Mhm.
our respective lives,
Yep.
how many players have just cultivated the habit of always carrying with them the memory of the worst rep they had out of 5 or 10 or 20.
Right.
They've developed that habit under the mistaken impression that that's what you're supposed to do in order to become better. I mean, they're not deliberately trying to sabotage their progress,
Right.
but they've somehow convinced themselves through whatever social influences they've been
Mhm.
subjected to, they somehow convinced themselves that I should be remembering my worst rep because that's going to motivate me to try harder next time. Well, it's also reinforcing all the neurology associated with poor execution.
Right.
Why
Yeah.
would you want to reinforce that? Why
Yeah.
not remember the best rep that you had and reinforce the neurology, the thousands of little nervous nerve cell
Yeah.
connections that underlie correct execution or better execution? Why not
Right.
reinforce those?
That's
And when
so
I explain,
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
when I
It make.
explain this to people, a lot of them go, "Wow, I never thought about it that way." Oh, okay. Well, maybe you want to start thinking about that way, And a week later, they come back and go, "Doc, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I wish I had known this 5 years ago."
Right. That's so interesting. It is. We almost equate this mental toughness and this, like, this resilience when you focus on the things you did wrong and get those right. And it's like this almost like this quest for perfectionism. Like you're eventually going to get to this point where you don't do anything wrong
Yeah,
anymore. When in reality, it's like just if you focus on the best things that you did and you accentuate those, like first, you're going to feel a lot better about what you're doing. It's going to be a lot more motivating. But have you seen at all a shift in this mindset in your career? I mean, I know it's been like 3 decades that you worked with this and stuff, but there's so much talk now about the difference in the social media generation and the difference in self-esteem and self-confidence now, especially with kids growing up. Did you see a big shift at all from even, especially like the young kids? I mean, 18 years old coming in as a cadet to West Point. Like, I mean, first it's not the easy school to get into. I mean, it's a challenging thing to get in there, but all of a sudden now you have this responsibility in your mind that you're going to be a leader in the armed forces at 18 years old. Like that could be a really big undertaking for people to get into, where it could be very easy to be like, am I good enough for this? Like, am I like not like, have you seen a shift at all in mentality, or has it been pretty similar throughout your career?
The degree of self-doubt has not changed
Really?
over the 30 years. Social media has really not facilitated greater self-confidence, self-esteem, self-efficacy. Social media, on the other hand, I think has fed the opposite side of the spectrum. Social media has fed that nagging self-doubt worm, because what social media has tended to do is throw out, oh, here I am with my friends having a wonderful time. Here I am at a concert event. Here I am at a nice vacation spot. Here I am doing something wonderful. And you're the recipient of that. And you're sitting at your desk slugging through your emails. And you're thinking, well, geez, they're having all this wonderful fun. Well, what's the matter with me?
Yeah.
You know? And I'm afraid social media has encouraged a lot of comparisons, especially for middle school, high school, college age folks, where it just gives people another opportunity to question themselves. And unfortunately, this has fed the, fed the perfectionism that some young people have started out life with. It's fed the perfectionism that, has continued throughout their development, and has really led to some bad outcomes. There are young people who have taken their own lives because they simply felt inadequate to the challenges of life. And one of the forces and factors that fed that sense of inadequacy was all the social media stuff that they got from all their friends and buddies and pals about how wonderful their lives were.
Right.
And so you're thinking, hey, my life ain't so wonderful compared to what I'm seeing, I mean, nobody correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think too many people share on social media. I'm really struggling. Somebody reach out and help me.
Yeah.
They don't
not
share
too much.
that on social media. Here we are at such and such a restaurant enjoying whatever.
Yeah.
So that can feed a recipient's sense of inadequacy.
Yeah. It just shows how powerful our minds really are, because, like logically we know that, well, Instagram's not real. Like everybody's not perfect in that, but all you see right there is the beautiful picture of the vacation with the great family. And it's like while you're slugging away doing your stuff, and you think that that's how they're living every day. And it's like, even though you kind of know logically, well, I know they have their struggles and stuff like that, but you don't see that. Like you only see what they're putting out there and they're signaling out. So we got to be so aware of the mental diet that we put in, because you even said, like, if you haven't done something before, but you put into your own mind that you are that person, you can almost think, is this delusional? It's like, well, kind of it is, but it can actually put you into the mindset of the person that you want to be. It just shows how powerful this thing inside of our noggin is, that we can create these things. It's really, really fascinating. So, yeah. Well, Dr. Zinsser, this has been a true honor. I really appreciate you talking to me today. I love the book. Everybody, you should go out and get a copy of it. It's The Confident Mind that you have here. Great insights. So thank you so much for your time, sir. I appreciate it.
Mike, it's been a wonderful conversation. My best to you and to all your listeners. Live strong, think constructively, and let's find out what kind of lives we can live.
Love it, sir. Thank you so much. Listeners, go follow Dr. Zinsser. I will talk to you guys soon. Peace. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found some great value here. And if you like this episode, please drop a comment and leave us a 5-star rating and review. It does more to build the show than you can imagine. And do not forget to check out and join the Strength Connection Facebook group. In this group, I share the biggest takeaways and lessons from these amazing conversations, as well as training and strength tips for pursuing mastery and fulfillment in life. This group is filled with individuals looking to take full control over their strength, and it's the perfect space to explore new ideas and to share your journey. And you'll also get exclusive access to these Strength Connection Mastery Seminars. It's a deep dive into the physical, mental, and spiritual training that you can begin using immediately. So do not wait, go now. Seriously, go. All right, much love to you. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.